Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another amazing episode of EdUp Career Schools, The Scoop with your host, Kathy Belletti. I am super excited for today's conversation because we're talking about trade schools and preparing our students for the workforce. I think a lot of our students have been misinformed when it comes to the opportunity with trade schools. So I brought on an expert to talk us through this topic. And her name is Miss Elvia Quintanilla. And she is the founder and executive director with Texas Technical Trade School. Welcome, Elvia. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the kind words and for having me on here. Definitely excited to be here and give some insights in what we do.
Absolutely. And I'm super excited. So, look, I always start off with this question because the responses are always random. Okay. So, how did your journey begin in higher education?
Well, loaded question. Well, in my end, because there was no straight line as far as why I got into higher education. It was not something that I set myself out to do. I had a very challenging young adult life that I was on my own a lot and just did whatever, wherever was best for me that I thought at the time. And now I'm here 10 years later operating and having a school. So I've gone through working at a school before, but I came from workforce system. So I was a high risk youth myself. And from those things, I saw that I could help myself, put myself through school for a high demand trade. And at that time, I was going for electrical engineering technician at a community college. And I was like, okay, well, and I was working coincidentally at a school where I got blessed enough to, when I went through my divorce at a very young age, 23, with a 6-year-old, then that's whenever I moved from Fort Worth to Houston with a 6-year-old in the car. And I was determined to just make my career from there. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I liked helping people. And that's always been something that I love to do. So I went to work at a school. They gave me a chance because I have no experience as far as customer service. I was great at it. So they helped me be an admission representative. They trained me. And I loved it. It was just so eye-opening for me. I was just like, we can give scholarships to people to go to school and we can tell them how, and to me, as a young adult that needed it, I was 23 at the time. I was just soaking it all in. So to me, it was like, okay, now I know how to apply this in somebody else's life because it is me. So I can relate very well. And from there, it just sparked my interest and it just trickled on to 10 years later, many connections, much work, working with the VA, working with the state, working with federal, become a FAFSA school, then becoming, and the other programs that I used to run. And then seeing, okay, you know what? I have an idea how we can run a school based on how I like to learn, how I feel like a lot of kinetics learners like to. And I'm here now.
Oh my gosh, I love that. First of all, you are the career student, and I can imagine you probably tell your story to almost every student that you come in contact with. I love that.
Oh, yes.
Is that why you decided to focus on electrical technical trades in your school?
No. So from learning all of these things as far as the incentives go, I'm a very hyper focused person. When I really like something, I'm just like a kinetic learner, just like an ADHD person that has ADD, ADHD. Those are good things to have in some settings because you could utilize those for yourself. And if you really like something, you tend to hyper focus on it. And that's what I did. I love workforce development. And I saw how you can apply it and it can become financially stable for communities, for families. And then that's where my passion grew. And I was like, okay, if I can learn this, sense of the scholarships, the legalities, the state initiatives, then I know how to talk to the people already. So maybe I should be able to get this information, learn, train myself, and then go from there. So it never felt like work for me when I was working at the other school, which was the best thing. And I went from admission representative to head of admissions to director of the school. And now, unfortunately, that school closed down after I left because it was just not servicing students the way that it needed to. And myself, it was always about the student. That is who is always going to be our teachers and our students. If we don't have great teachers, we can't have great students and vice versa. It's never, unfortunately, administration, of course, does a lot of amazing things. We do many things, but our if we want great students to go to work, it has to come from our employers and from our teachers, because those are the industry partners and the industry experts. And we're just facilitating the curriculum, facilitating how the state wants it to look, and
Mm-hmm.
the job readiness of it. And I think everybody working together collectively is what has made our school be, at 100% completion, 94%
Mm-hmm.
placement rate, and
Nice.
our unheard numbers usually, and we're very proud of them.
I love that. Would you say that a lot of your experience, like what really fueled that, was because you started off in admissions? The reason why I asked that question is because, come on, admissions, that's the front line to the school, right? And I
Definitely.
think that a lot of staff in schools, they don't have that first impression when it comes to the admissions departments. So they
Yes,
really don't know what it's like to talk to the student for the first time and represent the school, be the
definitely.
first point of contact. Those conversations are not easy.
And they're crucial. That is something that always trickles down to our employers, as far as
Mm-hmm.
when we set the standard of the type of student we want to take in and the type of student that the field needs. Because it's not just what we want, it's what the field requires. It's not what
Exactly.
Elvia wants, not what my teachers wants, it's what
Uh-huh.
the industry needs. So when we really talk about these things, exactly, be very upfront, be very transparent. It's, hey, what does the industry need? And then go from there and then see how we can facilitate with our resources. Then that's how we create programs that are robust, the programs that are really connected to the industries. And now employers are wanting to work with us, because 10 years ago, when I started in this field, employers were not knocking on my door, calling me like they do now. They were hanging up on me because skilled trades was not as big. It was needed, but people weren't realizing that was going to be needed. Now we're in a situation where we're lacking and we're hurting even more. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why the demand is even. I had 6 employers call me last week, and I don't have enough students to go to work. I've never had that problem in 10 years.
Wow.
So I see the demand growing, and that's why I want more young adults or anybody that wants to upskill and change careers if they just don't want to, or things, to get into the electrical field if they like it, because it's so diverse. Telecommunications, electrical, commercial, residential, industrial. It's just taking off. Solar for sure, and we want to be
Mm-hmm.
able to help our students succeed in those fields if they want to.
Absolutely. What I'm finding is that there's so many students who are misinformed when it comes to trade. Okay. I know even back in the day when it comes to trying to get into a high school,
Yeah.
the gatekeepers, these guidance counselors, they're like, trade school. Nope. Are you a trade
Yes.
university? Come on in.
Hmm.
And now I'm realizing that a lot more schools are open to the idea of trades.
Hmm.
But in a lot of cases, some students are still misinformed because they don't understand what trades are. And I
Definitely.
hear a lot of videos where they're like, I don't want to be a plumber. I don't
Hmm.
want to be a truck driver. And it's like, wait a minute, trade goes way beyond
Way
just being a
beyond.
plumber or a truck driver. So I absolutely love what you're doing. When you first opened up your school, what were some of the challenges that you faced? Because I know there's a lot of newbies out there and they're probably pulling out the last strands that they have and they're like, oh my gosh, what were some of your challenges?
Well, first of all, I'm a woman in a male dominant field. That's always
Say
going to
it
be a
again.
problem.
Hmm.
That's not. It's not a problem. I don't want to say a problem. The biggest challenge, because
Yeah.
not there's a lot more inclusive than it used to be, definitely. And then there's many employers that are so nice and so welcoming. And not saying any of that. As far as, you're always have to go harder, improve yourself, especially because I look young. I'm a minority and I'm a woman, so I don't
Hmm.
have a lot of things usually working for me, as far as in this field goes. And when I go in the room, they're like, "What do you know?" And then I start speaking, and I
Hmm.
say, "Well, I can tell you what I know, and I can show you what I know with
Yeah.
data that is driven, and results, and success stories and partners and initiatives." And then they start, okay, they start listening. And
Hmm.
that's usually what I do. One thing is that I learned very early on, when I started at 23, is people are gonna respect you if you know what you're talking about, and that you're educated in what you're trying to portray. So myself, I made it my, everything, that I
Hmm.
made sure that I talked to my teachers, and I told them, hey, tell me exactly how this trade is, because if I want to talk to employers, they need to trust that I know what I'm talking about. And from there, now I can have a conversation with them. Now they're like, are you an electrician? I'm like, no, I'm not an electrician, but I know exactly how the field works. And knowing those things, I let my teachers do the training and I do the work readiness. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have a database. So we operate just like, a staffing agency, but we don't, we're a state school. So we don't charge for any of our employer partnerships or our employer contract. We don't, we want to help. So we say,
Mm-hmm.
take on our students. If you want to hire them, we have internships. We even have work-based programs where the state of Texas can pay for those internship hours. So definitely so much work that we're using the resources already there. And that is what the industry, if you're in the industry, that's what you need to understand, is that the resources are there. You just got to look for them or get acquainted with what you're trying to do and then go from there, because there's so many things and it can get confusing.
Absolutely. Yeah, one thing that you said that was very important was product knowledge. When you walk into a room, the minute that they understand, okay, she actually knows what she's talking about. I wish more advisors understood how critical product knowledge is. I always tell advisors, when you're talking to a student should be able to turn to you and say, is that what you've done for a living? And it's like, no, because I want to help you. I make sure that I know the back of
Yes.
this industry like the back of my hand. And it's like sometimes it's just a job for so many people. And it's like, no, higher education goes way beyond just a 9 to 5, because it's really not a
Yes.
9 to 5.
I like that
You
you
know?
said that, because I always get asked, now that I've been in business for 3 years as a school, we're starting to prove when we have data record that we're doing, what we need to do. I'm getting asked, okay, Elvia, what are your best practices? And my thing is, honestly, you got to talk to people like people. That's it. People just want to be talked to like people. There's no secret sauce. There's nothing. I really care. I'm genuine about what I do. I'm genuine when I talk to my students. And then I get in trouble because they're like, Ellie, why are you still answering the phones? You got a lot of things to do. I'm like, I love that. You guys got to know I come from the admissions office. That's where I started. Like, I love talking to students. I love talking to my employers. So it's hard for me to let go of that part.
Uh-huh.
But I do pour in. I think the Department for Employers, and as far as job career services and admissions, are the two biggest, and of course the training, but the two biggest components apart from the training. And if they're not in line, if everybody's not in the same program as far as communicating and believing in what we do, it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to work out, because you got to believe that we really help people. I told my staff, I was like, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
believe it, you're not going to hurt my feelings, but I need you to believe it, because this is happening. And if you don't, it's not going to translate whenever our students come in here. I want them to feel hopeful. I wanted to know that there's more out there in the world, and this is where it starts. This is just the entry level. You don't know what more horizons you're going to open up, or what other things they're going to see from here. And that's really what I do through the trades, because the financial stability is there. It's
Mm-hmm.
short-term programs, and our communities, the biggest population, 60% at least, underserved, they need a skill, and they're kinetic learners. So why not start there and go from there?
Exactly. I think sometimes it's the process versus the prospect.
Yes.
Sometimes employees get so hooked up in the process, and then they're totally missing the entire story when it comes to the potential students. And then
Thank
it causes a disconnect. So now you have all of these students who are misplaced in the wrong programs. And
you.
now we're wondering why retention is so low in a
Mhm.
lot of schools. I love it. When it comes to the community, I know that you collaborate a lot within the community and you have a lot of connections and partnerships. Okay, can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Well, as far as the community partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
I've grown up, with the places that I've grown up, it's always been about community. The
Mm-hmm.
places that I've been able to be in, the spaces I'm able to be a part of, is because somebody believed in me, and somebody put me. A lot of our teachers,
Mm-hmm.
because I played a lot of sports, and they believed in me. And from there, I was connected to other things. So I always feel like there's power in community, because
Mm-hmm.
if you collaborate, they know your needs. They're your community. As far as local businesses, I can understand a local business, because I am a local business and I'm a small
Mm-hmm.
scale business right now compared to community colleges. I'm a training center smaller than that, but we have the same capabilities as far as creating curriculums in high demand trades and getting them funded by the state of Texas. So when we do those things, as far as working with those small business owners, I can understand the need and the urgency they have in getting that workforce started, and they
Mm-hmm.
respect that, and I relate that to them. I'm like, hey, I'm a small business owner just like you are. I want to help you. And then, of course, you helping us and us helping you. It's a two-way street. You're getting a good workforce. You're giving me feedback if it's good or not, because I want that criticism. And then we're fixing it and we're working to align you. And then you grow, we grow. Because if you got more jobs, that means you need more students.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful thing. And when I started doing that, help, taking the time to really help them understand, because they're so busy, then and then making it happen. Because there's one thing is telling them what you can do for them and then actually doing it for them. And that's the hard part, that if it can get tricky, because if you don't have the point of context to get these initiatives connect together, they're not going to work. They're going to take too long, and the employer is going to dip out. He has other things to do, and we understand those things. And I feel like working with the community and as far as nonprofits, because they understand their community, high schools, because they understand their student population, working with the employers, and then our workforce boards, everybody working together. I feel like that is why we're able to close in these community partnerships and have just so much of that activity there, because they see that we're out there and we're doing the work and how we can do it for them.
You know what? I realized that a lot of schools, they don't realize how involved the community actually wants to be. When I was working in Long Island out of a school, I remember one time we had marketing order to like a bunch of the flyers and posters. One was in Spanish and the other one was in English. And that just took two advisors. We drove there. One had the Scotch tape. I had the flyers, and the other one had the stapler. And all we did was choose a saturated neighborhood, and we walked door to door, barbershops and everything. Yep. And a lot of places, they were like, you know what, take our entire front window. Like, we didn't even realize how much involved the community wanted to be. I think some people automatically feel they go out and they're going to be like, no, get out of here. I don't have time for this. But they actually want to be involved.
Well, I think what you're saying is we have to think about communities that are developed. We understand those, but we also got to think about communities that are not developed. And those are the communities that need us the most, the rural communities, because sometimes they don't have broadband. So how can they see me if I'm in a platform and they don't have access to internet? And that's the reality. We just live in a world that is so fast paced. Sometimes you live in the city, and now doing this work, before 10 years ago, I didn't know these things that I do now as a business owner. I love the field, but I was able to learn that economic development plays a big role when you are working in workforce development, because those are the communities that need to be built. So that is the most needed community. So those are students needing the resources, because when we talk to other students that, let's say we're in Houston, so we service Houston and the 13 counties surrounding Houston. So Houston is very robust because it has a lot of opportunity, but the 13 counties around it, they're suburban, sometimes they're rural. Those kids come to us a lot faster than the kids in Houston. And I started seeing, I was like, why? Because these guys in Harris County have so much opportunity that they have choice, but these guys out here don't. And I think if we start thinking that way, like, okay, that's fine, because everybody needs to go wherever they want to go. We need to let students choose where they want to go, because at the end of the day, if they don't show up to school, they don't show up to the job site, what are we doing for them? We're not doing anything but putting them on debt. That's not fair. We shouldn't do that. School is supposed to be school first, people first, then it's a business. That's how I think. Even though I'm a for-profit school, I still think that that is just the way. If I knew it would have been, there was a space for nonprofit schools, I would have started in that space. But me just trying to, do what I need to do and try to survive, I got blessed enough to do things this way and then be able to work out. So I think working with rural communities is really important. And there's a lot of satisfying work there, because those students are so grateful. They're so ready to expand, foster, care children as well. They're going to age out. They don't have opportunity. And that, to me, when I would hear those factors, I was like, we need to do more. And we can. I'm not going to help all the population, but we can help some population that is still work. And all of us doing together, it's what we need to be able to do.
Absolutely. And you know what? A lot of students, they can see through the fluff. So even a lot of nonprofit, organizations, students can get the sense that these people don't really care, even if they're not making a profit. So I think it all starts with integrity and giving across to the student that, you know what, I actually do care about what happens at the end of this journey. You talk a lot about marketing, right? So I listened to your graduation speech, right? And you were really going in and you were passionate about your students being able to sell themselves. So,
Mhm.
what do you think is the most important when it comes to getting across to a student how to actually market themselves when it's time for them to get out there?
Well, one of the biggest thing is like I always said, I always want my students to, if there's nobody out there to help you, you got yourself. So first empower them to know that you got you. That's all you need. But if you got more, awesome. But if you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like you can't make it out in life without, anybody else, you'll find your people. So we tell them that first, like you got to represent yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
that is who is going to carry you on. So you got to love yourself. You got to believe in yourself. You got to pour into yourself, invest in yourself, education, mentally, all these things, because you can have a great skill set, but are you going to be able to keep that job if you can't stay there? If you can't show up, if you
Mm-hmm.
can't be transparent, if you can't be honest, you can't. Those are job readiness skills. So we have to emphasize on those two things that, hey, just like a skill set is really important as far as a hands-on skill, it's also job readiness skills and how do you represent yourself in a blue collar setting, because we're not in the corporate world. We tell them, we're in a
Mm-hmm.
blue collar setting. So there's a difference. And us telling them that, I always tell them, people rather talk to you than it is to talk to me. And it's not because they don't want to talk to me. It's just because you can tell their mannerisms, the way
Mm-hmm.
they speak, the way they stand up, the way you shake your hand. All of those our employers are looking for it, and
Mm-hmm.
they're wanting, because you're entry level. We tell them, so they're wanting to know how coachable are you, how approachable are you, and if you
Oh,
can impress them with that, then that's and I since I get that feedback from the employers, I make sure that I translate that and tell them like, hey guys, if employers were telling me they want to talk to me, then I wouldn't tell you to sell yourself. But they're
mm-hmm.
telling me they want to talk to you. So you got to learn how to network. You got to learn how to speak for yourself and represent yourself. And you got to get educated in your field. That's what you got to do. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to educate in your license. We're going to educate in the pathways there is with these licenses, the opportunities there is, how it is to work under license and not work under license, union, non-union, because we have no preferences. Wherever they're going to go to work and get paid,
Mm-hmm.
that's where we want them to go to work, because that's their life. We want them to be happy.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's why we tell them to market themselves. Branding, I mean, that is the biggest thing. Seeing what we have here, employers now see what we can do for them. So the same application for our students goes. Show them what you can do. Show them the pictures of your lab that you created. Do you have a
Yeah.
portfolio? We tell them, create a portfolio. You got to treat this job, I said, this training, just like if you were college. Just because it's 8 weeks does not mean that it's not a professional career. I said,
Exactly.
you're going to get ahead a year or even more in 8 weeks or 12 weeks, just because we jam crashed everything that we could and cut corners and that we could, and then identified what the employers are looking for. And it's just a beautiful thing. I mean, I sometimes don't even believe it, that it's like, okay, sometimes you can go to your program for the same thing that we
Uh-huh.
do, and our students, they're hiring our students. They're telling us, no, we need your students. And I do a lot of networking out there, so I get that feedback right in my ear as far as what employers are looking for. And I come back and I tell my students, hey guys, I just talked to another employer, and that's the motivation I bring into
Yeah.
the school. I'm like, hey, you know how many employers called me? 6 last week. Well, you know who I just got hired? The student just graduated last week, $19 an hour. And we continue to talk to them because that is motivation. And of course, we live in a world where instant gratification is a thing now, for a lot of our students, unfortunately. And in training, it helps because it keeps them the momentum going. But we also let them know expectation out there. If you don't get a good job, you're in the blue collar field. Continue to do your job. They're gonna notice, but then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they don't have the time. So educating
Yeah.
on those things, they feel a lot more equipped.
Yeah, I love that. I think students also need to understand those soft skills, like you were talking about. I remember when I was working out of a campus, how career services, they used to be going crazy because they would sit there, they would coach these students, and they had the technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
But then the very next week, the employer will call and say, this person's attitude is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think students understand that you could know everything. You could have an A plus average. It really doesn't matter. But if you have a horrible attitude, employers are still not going to want to work with you.
It's a
More
team
employers
effort.
today, they're willing to hire someone who's not as skilled, but has a great attitude. They're coachable, they're teachable. then someone who comes in, they have the most technical skills, and then they're running all their customers, out of their
Exactly. Yes.
assignment.
Customer service is a big, big thing. We say you are in a people service industry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you anything you do in electrical, unless you're working in a box space, you're not gonna. But you're working with your coworkers, you're working with your supervisor, you're working with a service. If you're going to people's homes, or you're working at a government agency in schools and hospitals, all of that is communications. And if you cannot represent yourself, or at least know what you do and tell them what license you have, don't
Mm-hmm.
expect to get top dollar. You're gonna get lowballed because they're gonna know they can lowball you. So you gotta be really equipped. You know.
Exactly. What about the student journey? So we all know students start off and sometimes they're at a 10, and then somewhere within the journey it like plummets and they're at a 2, almost at the brink of leaving because life happens. It gets in the way. Or sometimes those false beliefs come back. Is there anything special that you do to keep your students motivated like throughout their process at your school?
Well, definitely. We believe. Well, we know because I was that I never wanted to be generalized. That's always something that I didn't like. Whenever we would go to big settings and I would apply for a position or go into do something, and I was like, everybody is not the same. Even if we look the same, we're not the same. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing that I always emphasize as far as it goes in admission all the way through graduation, because
Mm-hmm.
I always tell in admissions, we want to know what are their needs, why are they not able to, what are their obstacles. Everybody is different. It might be
Mm-hmm.
economic development for one, the other one it might be transportation, the other one it might be clothes. We have to ask these questions and we have to personalize these things because every individual is unique individual. So if we start with that, and then of course a lot of it is motivating them to believe in themselves. Unfortunately, a lot of our young adults, they don't believe in themselves. As
They
we
don't.
have a lot of them that are very confident, overly confident, then we have that are no confidence. But we want them to be in that middle spot. We want them to
Mm-hmm.
understand that. And encouraging them with telling them, hey, these are your classmates, they got hired here, you're almost there, you're halfway there. Having student appreciation days like hot dogs and burgers and just like something fun.
Mm-hmm.
Every other Friday pizza, something like that. Try to do the workshops, make them interactive, make them fun, give them giveaways, things like that, because I'm a very, as you can say, I'm very, I like to move around. I don't like
Uh-huh.
to sit down for too long. And I know that's my student. I made this school to be for that type of student. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to think about those things and we have to engage them that way because they want to feel like they want to come back. We want them to feel like this is their home. And if they ever need anything, if they ever need tutoring, if they ever need to read blueprints, or they're going to go for a job and they're saying, hey, I don't feel comfortable here, I want them to always feel like, hey, our door is open and
Yeah.
we really care about your success, but we're not going to tell you what you need because in the real world, that's not going to happen. But know that these doors are always open for you, but you got to speak. And that is representation. And once we start talking that way to them and say, hey, it's not that I don't want to do it for you. I want you to tell me what you need because I can tell you what you need, but I might be wrong, and I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
offend you. I tell them. So we do that. We personalize a lot of things here. When I do a one-on-one with students where we're exiting as far as
Mm-hmm.
graduation, I get very, as far as what they want. Okay, what do you like most about the field? What did you see yourself like when you were out there? Did you like wiring? Did you like, what do you like?
I
And
love
then
that.
they're like, and then they start thinking, and nobody
Mm-hmm.
has sat there usually in their lives. They're not like, why are you asking me these questions? Like, because this is your life. It's an important decision. And it can give you $2, $3 more, or it can eliminate years of you doing something that you don't want to do. And me knowing these things, I would appreciate somebody telling me. So tell me, can you pass a drug test? Tell me. And if you can't, what's the plan? How are we going to get there? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not your mom. I'm not the cops, but there's legalities,
Yeah.
and if you want to be in the field or you want to get top dollar, that's my goal. But I need to help you and be realistic with me and be honest with me because I have a job. I need you to get a job. Talking to people, I feel like that's the best thing you can do. Just being
Mm-hmm.
honest, just be
Yeah.
transparent, and they're gonna come from there because I feel like so many people have talked to them already, and they're just like, we can tell that this is not. Yes, they can sense it. They can
Uh-huh.
be transparent.
And they can. It's so funny. I love that you personalize the student experience.
Hmm.
That is so very important. And, when it comes to student appreciation, like that goes a long way. A lot of our
Hmm.
students, they don't have any support. You are their only key to the
Hmm.
next level, and I think the more, especially admissions, they understand that,
Hmm.
more open that they'll be with students and getting them to gain that trust so that
Hmm.
students can really express to them, okay, this is exactly what I need and I have no idea how I'm supposed to get there. Can you help me?
Hmm.
I
No,
love
I
it.
think that exactly. I mean, I used to honestly, before I started this field and doing it on my own, I was really starting to get scared about our young adults. I was like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? How
Mhm,
this in 10 years, if everybody's like this, and then I started setting the standard as far as, okay, the expectation is if you're coming with a state grant, you got to go to work. If you're not
mhm,
doing that, don't take state dollars. That's what we tell them. It's a hobby. You got to pay for it.
mhm,
So we set the expectation there because what we want is we really want to be a resource to the state, a resource to employers. So we have to keep everybody accountable, just like I keep myself accountable. We keep our students, our employers, and the state keeps me accountable. Everybody's transparent. Everybody's working together, and there is so much work to do that there is not enough people. I
mhm,
wish people will understand that please stop gatekeeping. There's so much information that we need, and we need to help each other and need to work together because our communities are suffering. And the state of Texas, at least, has a lot of money for this, as far as to help us
mhm.
to support our communities to create these programs. And I'm here for that. I want to help in that, and I want to be somebody that can look to and say, hey, Elvia, how can you help us? How Because that's going to help our students at the end.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. The word that comes to mind is fulfillment. It's like, what is the point of spending almost more than
Fulfillment.
80% of your life at work if you're not feeling fulfilled?
Fulfilled.
And I think this is why I've been stuck in admissions for over 18 years now because
Well, I'm
being
trying to
being
stay
able to train
south, but it's not
advisors
going to happen. I don't think so.
graduation, seeing people who thought there was no hope, there's no way that I'm going to be able to make it, and then seeing the end result. I
It's
love it.
amazing.
You're awesome. Special question for you. If you were talking to yourself as a 10-year-old little girl, what would you tell yourself to avoid as she was growing up? Hmm.
What would I tell myself to avoid as a
Mm-hmm.
young kid? I think the fear, or what other people would think, because if I would have been that fearless 23-year-old whenever all my life was crumbling down, and just say, hey, I got no choice but to do it. If I would have learned that a long time ago, I probably would have been further. But life
Mm-hmm.
happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I think if a lot of more younger kids can just let themselves know, like, people are really not judging us as hard as we think they're judging us,
Yeah.
or they really do want to talk. They really do want to help. A lot of people think that people just don't want to open up anymore and things like that. I feel like it's just a lot of people that are lost. So I would tell more kids to say, really be curious, never stop being curious, never not speak up for yourself if you don't feel comfortable with something, or if you have an idea. Definitely, I've always been in rooms where I didn't care, where I never knew it was a thing. I never felt like I had to be restricted, because of my teachers
Mm-hmm.
empowered me so much. They were like, okay, yes, and my parents too. So I always like, okay, well, I feel like this is better, and what do you guys think? And then they're like, oh, those are good ideas. Knowing that that's a capability and that's a possibility, more younger kids need to know that, because they can create. There's innovation is such a big thing right now. There's such a
Mm-hmm.
shift and disruption right now in technology that you can become an inventor for so many things right now, and it's a wonderful
Absolutely.
opportunity, definitely. So be innovative.
Absolutely. This advice goes to a lot of adults also,
Definitely too.
especially when it
Yes.
comes to not being concerned with what other people are thinking. And I think a lot of us are trapped in that
Yes.
mindset of, being able to have people approve of everything that we're doing.
If
You
it
know,
works for you, it works for you. And if the results and the data is there and it's positive, then that is all the validity that you put. How
mm-hmm.
do you say that word? I forget. I mean, Spanish is my first language. But
All good.
on that, I feel like that
Mhm.
is all you need to do. Just be transparent there, and I feel like a lot of students can work on that.
Absolutely. So, where do you see the future of career education?
Career education for sure has changed in 10 years. I see it being a lot more robust than it already is. I see it being a lot more collaborative because there's a lot of more
Mm-hmm.
collaborations coming. I see more people working together than they used to. I definitely see a lot more shorter fast track programs, more hands on programs. Um, that I feel like shifting. So I feel like too a lot of the like training centers like me could be maybe a staple for community colleges, for universities, because whenever we have a population that doesn't understand that they have an opportunity, once we train them and their fast track program, we have a whole nother population now that they're the level that they can go to community college. They weren't even there yet, and
Mm-hmm.
that is what we want to hopefully create more of a direct pipeline for colleges as well. So if our students want to be electrical engineers, then they should be electrical engineers. We want pursue whatever your dreams are, but start wherever you are ready to start. And if it's with us at a small training center first, then going to community college, then to university, then that's a pathway. Don't
Yeah.
be scared of that pathway. That's a smart pathway. It doesn't always look in 4-year college. So I feel like that's where career education, in my mind, I want it to be that because it's more sustainable. And when students don't get in this much depth and they see that they want to work, and then they can pay for more of their school because a lot of employers, they want them back, so they'll pay for the
Yeah.
school. you
Yeah.
know
It's so true. I love that. I think it's also getting students to understand that there are different options. I think society just paints this picture that it has to be one way,
Yeah.
right? So students feel in their mind, okay, if I don't start off at a 2-year or 4-year, that means that I have absolutely nothing to offer to society. And who taught you that? That is so not
Unfortunately, that's
true.
when we were pushing 4-year colleges back when I was in high school. That's all we would hear. Unfortunately, so
Mhm.
you don't know that. Well, then you start minimizing. In which what happened in the trades, it was like, well, that's just a labor job. Well, that's just, and it's not. I mean, those guys are the ones running all these businesses, and they're the ones in
Mhm.
demand, and they're the ones making $100 an hour plus, and so because it's always a supply and demand. It's like if we don't
Yeah.
have enough people to do it, it's going to cost a lot more as consumers. So those are all things that as stakeholders, as communities, we need to be thinking about and talking collectively about, because they have the opportunity to help us here and us all together. Again, I feel like it just facilitates things. I'm tired of working this hard.
You know? Oh my gosh, Elvia, this has been such an amazing conversation. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
Final thoughts is, I mean, if you are a professional in higher education, my advice would be, don't try to always stick to the black and white lines. There's gray areas, and there's creativity, and
Mhm.
it's fun, and think like that. You don't and think about what kind of a population you have and you're servicing, and then mimic what they will want to see. And then from there, you already have a program that is great. It's going to feel more homey. And I feel like that is my biggest thing I want to get, because I want my students to be happy. So it comes from
Mhm.
the staff.
Love it, love it, love it. Elvia, you are doing amazing things in the
Thank you.
community. Don't ever stop. I love the
You
fact
too.
that you are the model, for your students. And I could imagine how your staff feels, and to have you as a leader. So,
Sometimes they love it. Sometimes they're like, man, we cannot keep up with you.
and that is totally fine. But I
Thank
love
you.
it. Do not stop what you are doing. And thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you guys took a lot of notes out there. All right. Until then, see you next time.
Bye.
I really hope that you enjoyed that episode. I have been working diligently to bring awareness to career schools. There's so much that they have to offer our students and our community. Every single role within the admissions process is critical, whether you're a part of the admissions team, financial aid, career services, academics, everyone deserves a voice. Admissions is the first point of contact for your school. So you want to ensure that you have a team who exudes confidence, passion, and a clear understanding of effective communication with our potential students. I totally understand the pain of missed class starts, low appointment and enrollment conversions, and this is why I created Next Level Admissions Training by Motivate with K.A.T. This platform is a step-by-step process, and it is going to train your new and tenured advisors in every single step of the enrollment process to ensure that our students are inspired and they're ready and prepared to start class. Admissions is not easy. It can be very challenging, but it's definitely worth it. So if you're ready to take your school to the next level, head on over to lessons.motivatewithkat.com and check out Next Level Admissions.